Well, having said that, let's go back to the man of the hour. Hi, Trevor. Are you still with me?
Yes, I am still here.
Yes, there you are. Trevor, I just really love the idea, and we spoke about this last week, of systems, right? And the power of systems. And you share a little bit of a story of how that book came to be together with Steve, who's your coach. So would you share a bit about how you see systems and how systems really is a reframing of something else that makes things just much more easy, like in a new context? Would you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say I'm so inspired by this group and what you guys are up to. It really brought me back to when I first started in coaching. I came across the book by David White, The Heart Aroused, preservation or poetry and preservation of the soul in corporate America. And it just sort of lit me up and opened me up to like, oh, hey, we could do the kind of work that you guys are talking about and that I was excited about in corporations, right? If David White, a poet, can come into corporations and talk to them about the soul, and I was like, well, then that's possible. So I love that that's what you guys are up to. And to me, that's really what's underneath the power of systems. If you read it closely, and by that I mean see some of the undertones in the context, the power of system is really a book about love. And we kind of talk a little bit more about that in the final two chapters. But to me, it was really aligned with what you guys are up to. But there was just a roadblock I kept seeing with myself and then my clients and the work I had done in corporations before I started my own practice. That as a culture, we're very committed to a psychological interpretation of everything. And it just kept getting in the way. And so I was really searching for, and found it in Steve Chandler's books and the work of some other people that we talk about in that book. What I ended up calling systems, but we could have called it anything. It was really just something to get clients in this case, but anybody out of the psychological interpretation, which is usually then all about me and what's wrong with me. And, or when I'm business leaders, I'd be working with them and they would really get stuck on how do I get my employees to have more courage or more confidence or some psychological quality that they thought they were missing. And when we really just started switching, and I love that you talked about games, I like to talk about games all the time, it's like really just the book is about switching the language game. Instead of playing the psychological language game, we just start playing the systems language game. And all of a sudden, my clients, business leaders I was working with, started seeing so many possibilities where a minute before they said there were none. They were very stuck. They didn't know how to get their team to have more confidence or, whatever, something psychological. And when we switched it over into the systems language game, they were like, oh, I could do this. I could try. I was like, okay, there's something here. I didn't catch on to it right away. And then that's where when I got really excited and brought it to Steve and said, hey, there's something that at the time I was just calling the systems, not psychology distinction. He got really excited too and said, you need to write a book, and offered to then write it with me because he started applying it the way him and I were exploring it together with his clients and seeing this immediate impact. And so we just both got really excited. And I'm so thankful that he offered to write it with me, because I think I would probably still be working on it if Steve didn't come along and offer his amazing system for creating and writing the book and having so much fun.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I, I, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Steve has been my coach also for a long, long time, right? And even his ACS, his Advanced Client Systems, right? So he's been using that word for a long time. What I like about it, about a system, is that you mentioned systems, not psychology, right? So most of the time we're in our psychology. And when the psychology runs the show, you get what you always got, right? And you get that famous Einstein quote, when you want to change something and you keep doing what you've been doing, that never works. Something like that. Somebody just entered. I'm gonna remove them gently. Just a sec. Yeah. Um, See how disturbing that is when people don't join on time? That is really. Um, when I talk with clients and I tell them, hey, there's something about your psychology, they get confused. Right? It's very confronting. It's very much about my psychology. All of a sudden, it gets very personal. But when you talk about a system, psychology is also a system of thought, a system of behavior, a system of action that always leads to a certain result. And if you examine the system, not the psychology, then you take the personal stuff out of it and you can get all the resistance is gone. Not all the resistance, but most of the resistance is gone. So I think that's a brilliant distinction between psychology and systems. How do you see that? How did you come up, by the way, with that distinction?
I think it was a little bit using the systems approach. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but the systems approach is experimenting. In the systems world, you can't know ahead of time if something's going to work. You can only experiment. And so I was experimenting with different, really one of the things I love to do is play with words, right? That's my Substack is called Playing with Words. I just love to play with words because to me, words coordinate behavior. And when I play with the words, it coordinates different behavior. So I was playing with different metaphors, different ways of saying it. And the systems seem to be the one that was coordinating the behavior I was really looking for, right? Like as you noticed, it took people out of the psychological interpretation. What is it about me? Or what is it about the other person that's broken or wrong and needs to be fixed?
Yeah.
To just starting to see, okay, this is how the system works currently. And if we want different results, and this is something that I first heard it from Steve, but he got it from Edward Deming, right? But in ACS, I think he said, you have the perfect system for your current results. How do we know that? Because these are your current results. So your system is creating this. And so if you want a different system or a different results, you have to change the system. And so as I started experimenting and playing with that with clients, it just started coordinating very powerfully a different set of behavior. And then I started to expand on it and realize, okay, this is a different language game. And when we just start switching the words, we get something powerful. It kind of came from my own experience of I always got very frustrated when people talked about mindset, attitude. I just didn't know how to change my own mindset or my own attitude or like where do I find that? But as I started playing in the systems world, it's I could get access to everything, right? It's something that I think maybe I got from Werner, but someone at one point said, I get really suspicious of anything I can't put in a wheelbarrow.
Mhm.
Not that it doesn't exist, but I want to slow down, right? And so I started thinking about them like, well, I can't put mindset, attitude, like all these psychological terms. I can't put that in a wheelbarrow. So what if I slow down? What else could I see, feel, touch, get my hands, or what I say, my mouth around? That I started to see that, like, oh, the words that people use, that we can hear and see and feel and touch. What if we just change the words? And it's just in the psychological interpretation, most people have a view that you have to change the thoughts before you change the words. In the systems world, that step's not required. You just change the system. And to me, language is a system. If I just start changing the language, and that's what I started with myself and then with Steve and then with our clients, it's like we started changing the language and the behavior changed. And now you can always put a psychological interpretation and say, oh, well, what's really going on is you change the thoughts and the mindset. I don't know, maybe that's just one interpretation. The systems interpretation, none of those steps are necessary.